With it being the 40th anniversary of Transformers and celebrating the release of Transformers 1 to theaters, there is no better time to do my viewing guide on how to watch Transformers every movie and series. It's morphin' time! Hello, this is Soundout here, and welcome to my viewing guide on Transformers. This is the entire franchise, both the US side and the Japanese side, how it all fits together, what goes with what, and where do the continuity lines lay. Because Hasbro has not made it easy to figure that out on anyone's own. So we're going to go through breaking it down over the entire 40-year history of the franchise. Now, if you want other viewing guides like this, I recommend checking out my playlist, where I've done plenty on the channel so far, and plenty more to come. In fact, the next viewing guide is just around the corner, and another one next month, so be sure to check those out if you haven't, and stay tuned for future ones. In fact, while you're here, hit the like button, subscribe, and the notification bell. Tells me you enjoy Transformers, tells me you want to see more videos, lets YouTube tell you when my videos come out. So always a good thing to do, really helps support the channel. Thank you so much. So before we begin, let's lay down some ground rules. First of all, we're going chronological by release date. So each continuity group, whenever it started, is where it will be placed, because we have some overlap between some TV shows and movies, but they're separate continuity groups, so we're going to put them in chronological order when they started. Also within that will be the proper viewing order in case there's any sort of date mix-ups. We're going to go with what's the order you should be watching in. Now, if you're wondering what are good jumping on points to start with Transformers, it'll be the start of every continuity group. While you could just jump into the middle of some of these, it really does work if you start at the beginning so you get the full story, because a lot of Transformer shows are sequels to prior ones. Now, we will not be mentioning different regional dubs, because there's been a lot of different dubs of shows in different countries. We're going to be mostly focused on what was the original language it was produced in. However, I will mention some of the Japanese dubs of English-produced shows because they tie into Japanese exclusive shows, and that's just needed context in all things considered. So we're going to go with that. It may get a little confusing in the beginning of this, but it starts to straighten out later on. But that's the only time I'll be mentioning dubs, is when it's Japanese dubs, to provide context for Japanese exclusive sequels. And this guide is just for on-screen media in terms of movies and shows. It does not include comic books or additional tie-in material, and I left out anything that was too short to really be considered a series. There's some cool promotional stuff out there, like Studio Trigger's Transformers 40th promotional video that I'm still buzzing about. It's amazing, but it's not really like a story piece, so much of a celebration of the franchise. But on that note, it's time to begin. Let's flash back all the way to 1984 with the G1 continuity. So much like when I covered G.I. Joe, we're starting in the 80s with Sunbow and Marvel Productions producing Transformers. The Transformers was essentially the first series. It aired from 1984 to 1987, having a pretty long run, but not as long as G.I. Joe's, ironically. Season 1 of this series was 16 episodes, and it started with the iconic More Than Meets the Eye 3-parter. It was kind of a kickoff, a little bit of a miniseries, but not disconnected from the first season the way the G.I. Joe miniseries were. So it's kind of like, it's just 16 episodes, starting from More Than Meets the Eye Part 1, all the way through the first season. The show was renewed, and Season 2 was 49 episodes, greatly increasing the number of episodes here, and introducing a lot of different concepts and ideas. The way that the 80s Transformers shows run is that they're kind of very toy-based, so you get a lot of characters that'll just appear out of nowhere because it's time to sell their toy, but there is some really cool stories therein, though it does play much like a Saturday morning 80s cartoon, and that may not be everybody's flavor. Now, after Season 2, Transformers the movie was released in theaters. This is a PG-rated animated theatrical film, and it's one of the most beloved pieces of Transformers media. Fans really love this one, including myself. It was the first thing from G1 I ever saw. It is loud, bombastic, really well animated, and visually appealing while moving the storyline forward for the series. It's kind of hard to not watch this movie as part of a watching of the G1 cartoon because it's just part of the main story. So many major things happen in this movie that impact the third season and beyond. And that third season in 1986 lasted for 30 episodes, continuing a lot of the storylines from the end of Transformers the movie, and a lot of cool things that happen therein. Unfortunately, though, this season does suffer for some cheapening out on animation studios, and a lot of episodes are well written, but not well animated, and sort of makes me wish we could get a redo on the whole season visually. I think there's a lot of cool concepts within that season. And in 1987, the series wrapped up with a 3-part known as The Rebirth, which is the only appearance of Headmasters, Target Masters, and similar ideas in the original US G1 cartoon. This 3-parter is officially called Season 4, but it is only 3 episodes and works more like a miniseries epilogue to the overall Transformers cartoon. Now, Transformers being what it is and G1 being one of the most popular things, there's been several releases on DVD, on digital, on streaming. My favorite's the Shout Factory collector's set from 2002 in the Matrix box. This is, the complete series 1 through 4 of the seasons, and there's been smaller versions of this and other sets over the years. It's also pretty easy to find. I think it's still on the Transformers YouTube. In terms of the movie, I don't think it's as easy to find on streaming, but it's been released on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K Blu-ray, and is still in print, so it's pretty easy to find. And this 4K Blu-ray is gorgeous. It's one of my favorite releases because I thought the Blu-ray was great, and then they even amped it up further on the 4K. But it's pretty easy to find G1 because kind of the baseline, everything Transformers is based on this, so it's always going to be kind of available out there. Now, interestingly enough, G1 also went through a couple specialized reruns, the first one being the Transformers Season 5, which was 20 selected episodes of the cartoon, bookended with live-action segments where Optimus Prime talks to a child. And it's done in live action with Optimus being a giant wooden puppet, one of which almost killed that kid because it fell and he wasn't there, luckily, but the arm was not super stable at times. Luckily, that kid got to live and tell the story. But the interesting part here is that there are live-action segments of Optimus introducing stories to this kid, and it's kind of neat, but unfortunately, we've never seen like a full, complete release of the bookend segments. Not that we need the episodes re-released, but the bookends would have been a nice bonus feature, but that footage just may not be in the Hasbro archives. Also in 1993, to promote the Generation 2 toy line, which is where we got the name Generation 1, or G1, it's from the Generation 2 toy line, which was mostly just reused stuff from the G1 toy line, but they did re-air 52 episodes of the G1 cartoon with bookend segments of CGI animation, a lot reused from the G2 commercials, to kind of introduce and exit each episode. Once again, those bookends haven't been officially released, though there are compilations of some of them online. Now, that was the relatively straightforward US continuity of original G1. There is the much more complicated but a little bit more interesting Japanese G1 continuity, and for that we need context. So in 1985, Japan got Transformers as Fight Super Robot Lifeform Transformers, lasting for 74 episodes. This adapted all the episodes of Season 1 and 2 of the US G1 cartoon, plus 9 newly made clip shows. This is a pretty straightforward dub. It's not doing anything crazy, but was kind of adapting the Japanese Transformers version that we would sort of use as a baseline going forward. And it is interesting that Transformers started as importing a Japanese toy line, or multiple Japanese toy lines, into an American toy line, making a comic book based on that, making a TV show based on that, and then that show eventually being animated by mostly Japanese productions, and then getting sent back to Japan to be dubbed into Japanese. Transformers is very much kind of like a of two worlds thing. It's both an American thing and a Japanese thing, and I think that's what makes it so unique. But anyways, that original dub hasn't been officially released in the US, though probably never will. There's sort of no reason for it to. And there's no reason to watch this in place of the English version. If you want to find it, there's probably fan subs out there, or some of it, especially because they've gotten some better home video releases of the show in Japan. Now, this is where we start getting into why I had to mention the Japanese dubs, because in 1986, the Transformers movie came out in US and other territories. It did not make it to Japan right away. And so to sort of bridge the gap between the Fight Super Lifeform Transformers and the next series, they would need a little bit of a couple bridging gaps, and this was done through video games, books, comics, and etc. But there was an original video animation produced called Scramble City Mobilization. This was an interesting piece because it's like a half-hour episode that sort of introduces some of the Season 3 characters that were introduced in the movie, like Ultra Magnus, a little bit earlier into the timeline, as well as kind of have a focus on the Gatai combiners, and that's how we got the name Scramble City combiners of like Superion, Bruticus, that sort of thing, and also work in the City Bots. It does end on a cliffhanger, though, that leads into the toy commercials from Japan, but it is kind of an interesting piece. Now, the interesting part of this is this was produced by Toei, and Toei owns ownership of it, it seems fully, because it has not gotten a proper release outside of Japan, despite releasing in Japan multiple times. The only time Scramble City was released was on the Sony 20th Anniversary Transformers the Movie DVD, which has a lot more features than the Shout Factory version. That's why I keep this around, even though I got the 4K Blu-ray for visual. This is a lot harder to come by, but Scramble City is included on it. However, once again due to Toei, they had to include it with an English commentary by several fan site owners, which is very insightful and cool, but the video itself is included, but not the audio. You can't hear the original audio of Scramble City on this DVD. Luckily, thanks to a lot of releases of Scramble City in Japan, there is fan recreations and fan subs that have different versions of it, and you can find it online pretty easily thanks to the fan community. Once again, Toei is the bane of my existence. So continuity-wise, the next thing was, of course, Transformers the Movie, which was dubbed into Japanese in 1989, which is 3 years after it was released everywhere else, pretty much. And that's kind of a bummer for them because continuity gaps. There was a thing I was reading about that, like, in the Japanese fandom, it was like this lost thing that, like, oh, these things happen and they refer to it, but we've never seen it because the movie was heavily delayed. The interesting part is the Japanese dub recently got fan subbed, and it's kind of interesting that they kept all the American songs in it, all the rock songs and everything still in it, which is kind of interesting. But this, of course, has had no official US release. This then led into 1986's Transformers 2010, which was a 32-episode dub of Season 3 of the original cartoon. They added 2 clip shows to make it 32 episodes. This was sort of, because there is a time skip between Season 2 and the movie, they decided to rebrand the show as Transformers 2010. It's interesting as well because in the US version of G1, it was a time skip to 2005, and then Season 3 took place in 2006, whereas on the Japanese side, they went all the way to 2010 with the time skip, which is kind of interesting. But that show was the dub of Season 3. So then naturally in 1987, they dubbed The Rebirth, right? The 3-part miniseries? No, in fact, they actually produced a brand new show, Transformers The Headmasters, lasting for 35 episodes. It completely ignores the Rebirth 3-parter of the original cartoon, so Season 4 was not brought over to Japan. They instead made an entire show focused on the Headmasters characters, and has a completely different way that the Headmasters work, and it's a whole different continuity. Now, that being said, if you wanted to watch the 3 seasons of G1 plus the movie in English, then jump over to the Headmasters, totally a viable option. It honestly isn't too hard to do because everything prior to this was dubbed. And so that means all the things that were there stayed consistent. It's only the deviation point between the Season 4 Rebirth 3-parter and Headmasters. So interestingly enough, this show did get released from Shout Factory on DVD, though it is now out of print, so there are official subtitles of it out there, though there is some weirdness because Hasbro had mandates about how certain terms and usages were, so sometimes names don't match up to what you're hearing, because there are name differences between the English and Japanese versions. And in 1988, another series came up, Super God Master Force, continuing what Headmasters had established and sort of forging ahead on a new Japanese continuity. They weren't dubbing things anymore, they were making new shows. And Master Force continued that, in fact going very, very different with some of its concept, with humans becoming Power Masters to become Transformers. And that's kind of wild considering the way the rest of the franchise plays out. But it allows for Master Force to have a unique staple within the Transformers brand. Just like with Headmasters, Master Force was released on DVD by Shout Factory, unfortunately is still out of print. I hope these come back someday because they were really nice to have some of the Japanese exclusive shows. And then in 1989, Transformers Victory would be the last of the Japanese G1 series. This lasted for 44 episodes, the last 7 episodes are clip shows, so it's really more 37 episodes. And this was released on DVD by Shout Factory as well, but they did leave off those last 7 clip shows because they didn't have any new footage, it was just clips, and so it's a nice streamlined experience here. Once again, out of print, and hopefully will come back someday, especially because we got a HasLab of Victory Saber and Death Saurus, so yeah, it kind of sucks the show's not currently available. But this is, of course, the series that Star Saber, Victory Saber, and Death Saurus come from, so if you're wondering where those HasLab's ideas came from and what was going on with that, this is the show. And it kind of takes a different approach with its Autobots versus Decepticons, or in this case, Cybertrons versus Destrons approach to the storytelling, which I think is cool. So in 1990, there wasn't a new Transformers series in Japan, the popularity had waned, and instead it was decided mid-production of the first episode that Transformers Zone would not become a TV series. So Transformers Zone, Enter the New Supreme Commander Die-Atlas, was a single original video animation episode, and it kind of shows a what if could have happened. There were manga for Zone and some other future productions, but this would be the last animated thing in the Japanese G1 continuity. This was also co-produced by Toei, and when Shout Factory tried to get Zone to include it in their Japanese Transformers releases as just a bonus episode, they were denied, once again by Toei, the bane of my existence. But that was the end of the G1 style in both the US and Japanese continuities. Things would continue further when the franchise would sort of get rebooted in the form of Beast Wars. So while on the US side, Transformers had been effectively dead since the end of G1's cartoon in 1987, with the comic wrapping up a couple years after that, and some toy lines like G2 not really working out the way they had hoped. And in Japan, Transformers had kind of waned, and the cancellation of Zone led to Takara going and investing in the Brave series of anime, which is probably another viewing guide for a different day. Transformers came back in force with 1996's Transformers Beast Wars, or officially, Beast Wars Transformers. This, personally speaking, is the first Transformers show I ever watched, and Beast Wars is a thing that holds in a special place of many. Because Beast Wars took a different concept. They decided to toss out transforming into vehicles, and everybody transforms into animals. And since the characters landed on a prehistoric planet, they ended up getting beast modes like dinosaurs and bugs and different kinds of mammals, and that's what makes Beast Wars really special. It's a whole variety, and I think sometimes more interesting toys. I kind of like it when a Transformer turns into a beast as opposed to a car, because there's more playability with that beast. Beast Wars would also be forging a new path of Transformers being completely CG animated, and considering this is the mid-90s, not many could do it, but Mainframe Studios, then known for their work on Reboot, were the ones to step up to the challenge, and it provided a unique look for this series. Now, I try to keep spoilers out of these viewing guides because this may be the first time anybody's watching one of these shows, and the guide is supposed to help them get there, but Beast Wars does have some continuity connections to the G1 continuity. What those are, I will leave for you to discover in the series itself. But you don't need to worry about watching all of G1 to understand Beast Wars. It does work standalone, and it had to, coming so long after the original cartoon's ending. Now, Beast Wars ran for 3 seasons. Season 1 was 26 episodes, and Season 2 and 3 were 13 episodes each. The series is relatively easy to find. It has been released on DVD a couple times. Shout Factory released Season 1 as one set, Season 2 and 3 as another, as well as a complete set, and it is available on streaming. And honestly, it's one of the best ways to get into Transformers if you want something a little bit less daunting than the original G1, because that original G1 show is 98 episodes. This is definitely more of a character and story-driven series because they couldn't have a ton of characters thrown in because of the budgets of CG animation, so they focus in on the cast that's a lot smaller, and it makes it easier to get into, especially at 52 episodes. It's not a huge commitment, but it is a high-quality show. The CGI animation may be sort of off-putting to some people of modern viewing because it is, of course, some of the earliest CGI done on television. Now, with the success of Beast Wars, it did end kind of conclusively, but Hasbro felt on making it continue with a sequel, 1999's Beast Machines Transformers. This is a dark dystopian series that asks the question of what is the purpose of life. It is a whole different vibe than Beast Wars, and there is some continuity problems between Beast Wars and Beast Machines due to the Beast Machines writers not being allowed to look back on what Beast Wars had done. So there is a lot of character personality changes. Though there are story reasons that do explain it in the beginning, if you are working into the subtext, it is kind of a bit of a jarring sequel. Sometimes it could be taken as a what-if sequel to Beast Wars, and you could just leave Beast Wars as to where it ended. Depends on the person. But officially speaking, it is the in-canon sequel. It ran for 2 seasons for 13 episodes each, 26 in total. Season 2 was also known as Battle for the Spark. It's just kind of branding with the toy line. And unfortunately, Beast Machines was not super successful, so there was no third Beast Wars series, and the plans for Transtech were canceled, and the Transformers brand went into a different direction. Beast Machines has been released on DVD a couple times. Rhino Video and Shout Factory have both released it, and it is pretty easy to find on streaming. I really do find a lot of the ideas fascinating, even if the overall execution isn't super solid. This is one of the few philosophical Transformers shows, and it was written in a completely different way, and definitely ahead of its time, coming out in 1999. Now, over in Japan, Beast Wars was handled a little differently, whereas the English version was a lot more serious while still having gags and humor, because it's a kid's show. You're going to have some fun levity in it. It's not going to be depressing all the time. Beast Machines. But Beast Wars was kind of a more serious show. However, in Japan, Beast Wars Super Lifeform Transformers was a gag dub. Yes, a gag dub. The things that are sort of infamous when you get like an Ultraman Tiga 4Kids dub, where it's like, is it all jokes? Did they take all the character out of it? And from everything I've seen in Japanese Beast Wars, yes, they have. This is important context to have. This was popular in Japan. It has influenced every future Japanese dub because of it. And yeah, that was Beast Wars. It was 26 episodes dubbed into Japanese with a lot of gags, and I mean a lot. There is no fourth wall. It is all comedy. It is kind of insane, and they change a lot of things. It's very, very different. Now, that was done in 1997, and for whatever reason, there was a delay on getting the second and third seasons in Japan, so 2 shows were produced in between Season 1 and Season 2 of Beast Wars as we know it, or between Beast Wars and Beast Wars Metals as Japan knows it. The first of these being 1998's Beast Wars the Second Super Lifeform Transformers. This was a 43-episode anime series that was produced in 2D as opposed to Beast Wars' normal 3D CGI. I imagine that's because the Japanese anime industry wasn't quite on the CGI level yet. But it does provide 2D Beast Wars, which is kind of a neat, different vibe. Now, this does not take place on the same planet as the regular Beast Wars series. It takes place on planet Gaia and deals with different Maximals and Predacons. Also, I forgot to mention, it's not Autobots and Decepticons in Beast Wars, it's Maximals and Predacons. But this is the battle between Lio Convoy and Galvatron for the power of planet Gaia. And much like that Japanese Beast Wars dub, it is very gag-heavy and very comedic. So it can be a little jarring if you're jumping from the English version of Beast Wars to Beast Wars the Second. Also, unfortunately, unlike the G1 Japanese series, they have not ever released Beast Wars the Second officially in the US. But there was a movie for Beast Wars the Second, Lio Convoy in Imminent Danger, taking place after episode 38. And in 1999, Beast Wars Metals still wasn't ready, so Beast Wars Neo Super Lifeform Transformers aired for 35 episodes. This is a direct sequel to Beast Wars the Second and sees the conflict between Big Convoy and Magmatron. And that is another series that was not released outside of Japan. It is kind of locked there. But also because of how completely different the tone is for the Second and Neo than regular Beast Wars, that may be a smart marketing choice. Then later in 1999, Japan finally got Beast Wars Season 2 and 3, known as Beast Wars Metal Super Lifeform Transformers. This was 26 episodes, but it's weird. Okay, so there was 26 episodes between Season 2 and 3, which would line up perfectly with this. But they actually aired a couple episodes early as part of theatrical releases, which was the episodes Bad Spark and Cutting Edge. So those were actually like movies in Japan. And then that means they needed to do 2 clip shows to match up to the same episode count of what they were dubbing, instead of, I don't know, just re-airing those 2 episodes in the proper sequence. Anyways, that was also a gag dub, and the popularity of Metals in particular is why gag dubs have stayed popular with Transformers. Well, let's say gag dubs have stayed consistently happening in Transformers ever since. Whenever they bring a US show over to Japan, they tend to gag dub it. And Metals was probably the reason for that. Now, they didn't get Beast Machines right away, and instead it came out later in 2005. Super Lifeform Transformers Beast Wars Returns was a 27-episode dub of Beast Machines. They added a clip show to it, and it got even crazier with the gag dubbing. Naturally, none of these gag dubs have seen a US release. I just wanted to point that out. Yeah, the Beast Wars gag dub is something that, as a fan that knows the original material, it could be seemingly really jarring and off-putting, but to fans in Japan who never saw the original version, and this is the version they grew up with, it's probably natural for them. But it's very interesting, completely different approaches on the Beast Wars series. And yeah, that would be the last time we have a Japanese show that actually continues continuity from an English show, so luckily everything on the viewing guide after this is a little bit more straightforward. Context was important here. So in 2000, Beast Wars was over, the Brave series was over, and Takara decided to produce a new series, Transformers Car Robots. This series was a brand new anime. It lasted for 39 episodes, and it was sort of a soft relaunch of the continuity, except officially in Japan, this is in the same continuity as Beast Wars and G1, and in fact that the Japanese Transformers continuity in general says everything takes place in one universe, which does seem insane, but this is how it goes sometimes. But it did see the exploits of Fire Convoy and his Cybertrons going up against the evil Predacons. And so this series was kind of like a mismatch. It was like the evil guys were still beasts, but the good guys were now vehicles. So it's kind of bringing things back to its roots. Plus, it used a lot of similar elements to the Brave series in terms of robot design. But the interesting part here is that when Hasbro scrapped their plans for a third Beast Wars series known as Transtech, they decided to bring car robots over to the US and dub it as Transformers Robots in Disguise, the 2001 series. You'll see why that's important later. Dubbed by Saban Productions, it did add a lot more gags to the series, but it was already a comedic series to begin with, so it's not really like a gag dub, more just a little bit punched up in jokes, and some jokes changed for cultural context. This allowed Hasbro to soft relaunch the Transformers brand with Autobots vs. Predacons, sort of easing kids away from beasts into vehicles. And honestly, it worked. As a kid that grew up from Beast Wars to Beast Machines to Robots in Disguise with the G1 movie somewhere in there on DVD, it sort of eased you into, we're not doing beasts anymore, we're doing vehicles again. Interestingly, the show runtimes are the same, though the clip shows are different. The series still has 3 clip shows, both for car robots and Robots in Disguise, but they are different clips in each clip show. It's very strange. What's also strange, and probably due to Disney purchasing Fox Family and the Saban library, RID 2001 has not been officially released or have an official release period in North America. The Japanese version, of course, hasn't been released either. There was a complete DVD set for Robots in Disguise 2001 in Germany, I think, and in the UK as well, and so it is easy to find online, but no official release exists, which is kind of a bummer. Also, this is another thing that got a HasLab that didn't have an official release. Kind of weird how that works out. But Robots in Disguise 2001 is a standalone series. There's no feature continuity with it, but it is kind of an interesting take on the overall version of the Transformers. So with the success of Robots in Disguise 2001, a concerted effort was made by Hasbro to work with Takara directly and do co-productions for the next few series. These would be eventually known as the Unicron Trilogy. So beginning with Transformers Armada, also known in Japan as Transformers Micron Legend, this co-production would be the 2 companies working together for a toy line and series, sort of fulfilling the needs of both, without one kind of superseding the other. Interestingly enough, Transformers Armada premiered first in August of 2002, whereas Micron Legend would not premiere in Japan until January of 2003. This did lead to an issue, because the reason Armada premiered first is because Hasbro was really rushing it out the door. They wanted their new toy line out before the holidays, and they wanted the show on the air. And unfortunately, it means that Armada is missing some animation. In fact, a lot of the animation is unfinished in Armada, though it would be finished by the time Micron Legend would come around to exist. And Armada was a huge hit. It brought new fans into Transformers. It gave us kind of a traditional Autobot versus Decepticon conflict, but it still had a lot of the cool Japanese elements like the super robot forms and the combinations and all the kind of cool things that come with that. And for many, Armada was their first Transformers show, and it was an easy entry into Transformers. It was pretty much engineered to be that, and it's pretty cool overall. Plus, on top of that, with the Japanese version existing, there is a very nicely animated, completed version out there. Now, if you're looking for the series, it has been released on DVD by Rhino and Shout Factory, as well as available on streaming. Micron Legend, though, is pretty much only available in Japan, which is a shame. I kind of wish we could get that as well, considering the finished animation. Now, this co-production was successful, so in 2004, Transformers Energon, also known in Japan as Transformers Superlink, aired as well. Now, interestingly, this time they aired pretty close together, like only about a month apart. This is a direct sequel to Armada / Micron Legend, and is in fact a 3D 2D hybrid. So all the Transformers and the environments are 3D CGI, and the human characters are in 2D, though there are some 2D shots for dramatic motion. This is a little awkward in Energon. They sort of work it out by the next series, but they were trying something new here. Where Armada had been all 2D, they did the Transformers in CG for the Energon series, and it's kind of a cool idea. I think it probably helped with a lot of the production stuff. Now, of one complication, Superlink is 52 episodes, Energon is 51. For some reason, episode 33, Return Our Scorponok, was not dubbed for unknown reasons, and so therefore there is no episode 33 of the English version of Energon. It only exists in Superlink. This does cause continuity problems with Energon. Much like Armada, Energon's pretty easy to find. It was released on DVD by Paramount and Shout, and it also is on streaming, though the Japanese version, Superlink, is not officially streaming. And then in 2005, the conclusion to the Unicron Trilogy, Transformers Cybertron, also known as Transformers Galaxy Force in Japan. In this case, Transformers Galaxy Force aired first, and then Cybertron aired several months later. It was about 8 months later. And the reason for that is that part of the co-production is that Hasbro wanted this to be the third part to a trilogy. The show that was produced by Takara in Japan was kind of a standalone soft reboot. And so because of that, there was a lot more work that had to be done when the English dub came up for Cybertron to connect it back to Armada and Energon the way that Hasbro intended it to be. See, the reason it's called the Unicron Trilogy is Unicron is important to the plot of Armada, Energon, and Cybertron. But Unicron is only important to the plot of Micron Legend and Superlink and not Galaxy Force, which is practically its own show. But that being said, the series itself is beloved by the fandom, and the toy line is especially beloved at being called one of the best. In addition to this as well, the 3D CGI plus 2D human hybrid thing worked out a lot better, as well as just in generally the series was well regarded. But there of course is a complication, because why wouldn't there be? For Cybertron, the first episode, Fallen, is actually edited together from the first 2 episodes of Galaxy Force. Then episode 52 of Cybertron, Inferno, is just a straight dub of episode 2 of Galaxy Force. So if you're trying to watch the series, most places will place Inferno as the 52nd episode. I would recommend watching episode 1, Fallen, go watch Inferno. You're going to see some of the same events at the same time, but it'll fill it out. Then go back to whatever episode 2 is and then continue onward. That's kind of the easier way to do it for continuity's sake. Kind of wish they never did that. That was really, really annoying. Much like with Armada and Energon, Transformers Cybertron has been released on DVD by Paramount, as well as Shout, and is available on streaming. Galaxy Force, to date, is not. I would love a box set of Micron Legends, Superlink, and Galaxy Force one day. But that was the Unicron Trilogy, a big event for many fans, a huge entry point for a lot of kids in the 2000s. But the thing that would put Transformers on the map and would keep it around, consistently putting out something every single year until the present day, would be the next thing, the live-action movie. I remember the day that I saw an article. It was around 2005, Energon was on the air, and there was an article saying, Transformers live-action movie in development, and 10-year-old me could not wait for it to come out. 2 whole years later, in 2007, with Transformers. This is a live-action reimagining of the Transformers for a modern age, and it was insanely popular and spawned a film series that will not stop no matter how much people keep trying to make it. And the interesting part here is that this film is so beloved because I think it just was a lot of people's entry point into Transformers. It was so big, bombastic, and just huge. It was just a huge like cultural juggernaut thing that you couldn't avoid. And it's kind of amazing because this is the success that Transformers had really not had since the 80s. And honestly, it kind of blew up more because of the movie than it did in the 80s. And the success of the movies has caused the Hasbro company to work their entire business plan around movies, sometimes canceling shows for the sake of marketing movies instead. We will talk about several of those. But anyways, Transformers 2007 was a big splash. It is pretty good as an entry point, all things considered. It may not be everybody's favorite for those long-term fans, but it was undoubtedly a cultural success. In 2009, it got a follow-up, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. Not as well received, probably because Michael Bay was writing scripts during a writer's strike. Don't scab people, it makes your movies bad. And then also in 2011, the conclusion of the original trilogy, Transformers Dark of the Moon, sort of wrapped out the original storyline. However, it couldn't be stopped because that movie made so much money that Transformers Age of Extinction, coming out in 2014, takes a time skip forward, switches out a lot of the human cast, and moves the characters forward in a much darker direction. And 3 years later, Transformers The Last Knight is probably one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. But that does not dissuade you from watching it, because if you've made it all the way through Age of Extinction, you'll probably want to see where this whole thing works out. It ends on a giant cliffhanger, and the movie universe was rebooted because of how poorly this was received, not just in critical reviews and audience reception, but also in disappointing box office. This is also one of the only movies I've ever seen to have like 75 different aspect ratios, sometimes switching between them in single shots, just back and forth. The frame is just moving up and down constantly. It drives me insane. Now, being modern movies owned by Paramount, there are several releases of these films, from Blu-ray to DVD to 4K to streaming, and all kinds of interesting things in between. So it's pretty easy to find these, and it's probably not difficult at all to track them down, which is pretty nice and makes a nice entry point, being 5 movies. But there are more Transformers, and things continue. With the success of the movie, a new animated series was born. Debuting at the tail end of 2007, Transformers Animated brought a new art style and a very new, interesting storytelling method. Widely regarded as one of the most popular and fan-favorite series, Animated took a different approach, and it took a bold risk, and it got canceled for it. This is kind of a sad story, so let's just begin with the highlights. In 2007, there was the Transformer and Roll Out TV special that later was cut into 3 episodes that kicked off the entire thing and introduced you to all the characters in the new exciting new world. In 2008, 9 shorts were produced. They aired in some different ways. 7 of these shorts made it onto the old Paramount DVDs for Transformers Animated, but 2 of them were kind of lost media because no one could have them outside of like a couple BotCon showings, but they were recently recovered. So all 9 shorts are not part of the streaming package or part of the current DVD set for the series, but they are easy to find online, and they're just fun little bits and pieces between different scenes and stuff. The series itself would then run for 3 seasons of 13 episodes each, so season 1, 2, and 3, 13 each, plus the initial 3-part TV special. So sadly, season 3 does end on a good conclusive note, but there's a lot of things left hanging that weren't resolved. And the reason why is because season 4 was planned. There's scripts, there's story bibles, there's character designs, there were toy ideas in mind. But the toy line was canceled and the show was canceled to make room for the marketing for Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. That kind of seems to be what ends up happening. Also, there was some other things going on with Cartoon Network at the time, as well as within Hasbro, and sadly Transformers Animated was cut short, and fans have been clamoring for more ever since, with live script readings, comic books, and other material being added from the people who worked on it to kind of show us what season 4 would have been like. Transformers Animated has a nice complete series DVD set from Shout, and also individual volumes from Paramount and Shout. It is available on streaming as well. It is one of the most fan-favorite Transformers shows and is a good entry point because it is standalone and it's pretty short. Sadly, maybe a little too short. You'll feel longing for it if you really love it, but it is a nice series to start with if you haven't. Now in 2010, not only was there a success of Transformers Revenge of the Fallen at the box office, regardless of the quality of the movie, there was Hasbro launching their own network known as the Hub Network in conjunction with Discovery Family. So naturally, Hasbro wanted to provide original programming based on their brands, which included G.I. Joe Renegades and Transformers Prime. Transformers Prime would kick off a continuity group that would be one of the longest lasting continuity groups, probably the longest lasting when you look at episode count overall, even beating G1. And it is the last time we got something long form from Transformers. But starting in 2010 was Transformers Prime. This series lasted for 3 seasons, 26 episodes, and 13 episodes respectively, as well as a concluding Predacons Rising TV special taking place after the end of the series. This was done with high-quality CGI animation, taking in styling of both traditional Transformers as well as the movies, sort of making just kind of a omnibus edition of Transformers thoughts and ideas. High-quality voice cast as well, and very interesting storylines. The series itself is well beloved by the fandom, and is well regarded as one of the best Transformers series. If you are looking for Transformers Prime, it was released completely on Blu-ray by Shout Factory, which is a rarity in this franchise, and it is available on streaming in multiple places. It is definitely a good entry point into Transformers. Now in Japan, Transformers Prime was dubbed, but after season 3, they produced an original animation called Transformers Go, or Triple Combination Transformers Go, lasting from 2013 to 2014. It's officially set after Prime Season 3, but of course the rest of the things in this continuity group are going to ignore this because it was only released in Japan. There was the Samurai chapter of 6 episodes and the Shinobi chapter of 4 episodes, released only in Japan, mostly for promotion for the Transformers Go subline that was Triple Combination robots. Now in 2011, in order to diversify the Transformers lineup and get some younger fans into the mix, Transformers Rescue Bots was created. Sort of a preschool-aimed show. It's incredibly well written though, and a lot of people really enjoy it, and one of the longest running Transformers shows, running for 4 seasons of 26 episodes each. And these are full 25-minute episodes, and that is pretty awesome. So Rescue Bots is kind of a younger aim show, but it is something for fans to enjoy if they enjoy that type of show, and it's pretty cool that they included that. It is officially in the same continuity as Transformers Prime, and some overlap of characters does happen with this and the next series, but it's kind of cool that it exists. It's not necessary for Prime, but it is a nice series to have in addition to it. That leads us to 2015's Transformers Robots in Disguise. Hey Hasbro, you used that name already. I know you can't legally release the original Robots in Disguise, but Google searches have been ruined by this. Anyways, this series lasted from 2015 to 2017. It is a direct sequel to Transformers Prime, taking place many years later. And while it uses the same animation studio, it does not use the incredibly detailed models of Transformers Prime, but goes for a more simple cel-shaded look. Honestly, probably a good idea for the budget saver. This did run for multiple seasons, though it's a little weird. Season 1 was 26 episodes. There were 11 shorts that take place after Season 1. Season 2 was 13 episodes. Then there was a 6-episode miniseries that is officially Season 2.5, sometimes lumped in with Season 2, sometimes lumped in with Season 3. That is a 6-parter about Starscream, so it's important you find that. And then Season 3, Combiner Force, was 26 episodes, wrapping out the entire series. Now, this sequel isn't as beloved as Transformers Prime and takes a more episodic approach to Transformers Prime's more overarching serialized look and nature to it. It is a fun show, but it is not as high stakes as Prime was, so that can be a little off-putting to some fans. Now, sadly, only one complete season was released on DVD by Shout Factory, and the rest has not seen release on disc at all, but it is available on streaming and should be easy to track down. And then the last in the Prime continuity is Transformers Rescue Bots Academy, lasting from 2018 to 2020. This is a sequel to Rescue Bots, though the episodes are now 11 minutes in length as opposed to 22. So in 2018, we had Season 1, which was 52 episodes, and Season 2, which was 52 episodes as well, giving it a nice runtime. Now, overall, that is about 52 episodes length compared to a normal Transformers show. Sadly, the show has no physical release, neither does Rescue Bots have a complete release. It has some DVDs, forgot to mention that. Rescue Bots is on streaming, Rescue Bots Academy is on digital purchase, but not streaming, though because it's a recent show, it shouldn't be hard to find. So that was the Prime continuity, 10 years of Transformers shows that were all in the same universe, not only including the 4 shows that aired in English, but there was one Japanese exclusive show, and that is the longest continuity group that we have. It's pretty straightforward, unlike the G1 and B-Store stuff that got complicated, but it's the longest group of continuity we've ever had, and sadly, we don't think we're going to see that thing again because the current Hasbro leadership and the way things are done, as we will talk about in the next several sections that are much shorter than the sections that came before it. It's just amazing we got 10 years about it. And yes, it's called the Prime Continuity because this is my guide. I am not calling it a line continuity. You can't make me. Longtime Transformers fans probably yelling in the comments already. But let's move on and take a look at what has come ever since the Prime Continuity ended. So the next Transformers production was the Prime Wars Trilogy from 2016 to 2018. This was done exclusively for Machinima. Machinima's dead, so this series is now harder to find. Thanks, licensing. Also, this series has not seen a physical release in a complete form, though there was a DVD we'll talk about in a moment. This was an adult-aimed series made to market the generation toys of the time, and it features the following. The 4-episode Transformers Combiner Wars Prelude, focusing on characters that would be important in the Combiner Wars storyline. The 8-episode Combiner Wars series, the 10-episode Titans Return series, and the 10-episode Power of the Prime series. Now, the Combiner Wars series, I don't believe it included the Prelude shorts, was included on a Target-exclusive bonus disc for Transformers The Last Night, which was the only physical release of any of these shows. Hooray! Also, these shows are infamous within the fandom, but I don't know how to recommend these to first-time viewers because while they are a standalone continuity, they play off of you knowing who all the characters are, and it also plays a lot with the storylines in the IDW comics, so they're not really beginner-friendly in any way. So on the flip side of things, Transformers Cyberverse lasted from 2018 to 2021, lasting a good while. This was an 11-minute episode series, but they are more serialized as opposed to standalone. And this mostly focused on Bumblebee in the early parts of this, but kind of continued to do more characters throughout. It sort of has the same vibe as G1, where they throw a ton of characters at you and do a lot of lore stuff. And that's kind of a cool reinvention of G1. I really enjoy Cyberverse personally. So Season 1 of Cyberverse, known as Chapter 1, lasted 18 episodes. Chapter 2, known as Power of the Spark, was also 18 episodes. Chapter 3, Bumblebee's Adventures, was 26 episodes. And the series wrapped up with Chapter 4, which was 2 TV specials of about an hour each. Sadly, while the series is available on streaming, it has not had a home video release at all. But it is a fun time. If you're looking for kind of like a grab bag of just how do I learn so much Transformers in the fastest way possible, Cyberverse is the way to go. It will throw literally every element of Transformers at you within this series, and honestly, that's really, really cool, and kind of a cool, here, enjoy what Transformers has to offer, and then you can dive deep into the things you liked from it. So the interesting part about the Transformers movies is that Last Night was not well received and had disappointing box office, but not enough to cancel the Transformers live-action movies. So in 2018, Bumblebee was released, a standalone Bumblebee movie that does feature other Transformers characters, but is focused on Bumblebee and his hijinks and adventures on Earth. This is completely not in the continuity of the 2007 movie. It does not fit whatsoever, even with the original movie's timeline sliding scale of when the Autobots showed up on Earth for the first time. But it is a new universe, and I have to say that because the official producer of the Transformers movies still thinks all these things are in one timeline, and I'm looking at the text in the movies. They're not. This is a new timeline. It's Bumblebee. It's a delightful movie, and kind of takes a different approach. It's not like a huge, big, blockbuster action fest the way that the previous movies were, and it kind of takes a more intimate storyline with Bumblebee and the humans he meets. This was followed up in 2023 with Transformers Rise of the Beasts, effectively a sequel to Bumblebee. It continues the continuity, as well as bringing in some of the elements that we had seen sort of introduced in Bumblebee. It also brings in Beast Wars characters, introducing them in a different way than we had seen prior, and honestly a pretty cool way to introduce the Beasts into the live-action movie universe. Now, this movie was sadly a box office disappointment because it came out in a month that had 5 blockbusters in a single month. That was insane, Hollywood. What do you even do to yourself? You're cannibalizing your own movies. But it's probably made it back its money thanks to GM sponsorship, Porsche sponsorship, as well as toy sales, of course. So there is another movie in development that is billed as a Transformers and G.I. Joe crossover. And we'll see if that movie ever sees the light of day, because Paramount's in shaky state, and so is Hasbro. Now, both these movies are available, of course, on Blu-ray, DVD, 4K, and streaming. Pretty easy to come across because they are very recent films, and they like having them out there. Next up, Transformers War for Cybertron Trilogy. This is an adult-aimed Transformers series that's made to promote the Generations toy lines that is a trilogy of short shows exclusive for a streaming service. Welcome back, Prime Wars Trilogy. Yes, in fact, this follows the same exact format as the series for Machinima, but Machinima's dead, so now it's exclusive to Netflix. And it follows the same idea, adult-aimed Transformers made to sell the adult-aimed toys, to varying successful degrees, I guess. This was Siege, which was 6 episodes, Earthrise 6 episodes, and Kingdom 6 episodes, which had to shoehorn in the Beast Wars characters because the toy line did that too, because they suddenly decided we can do Beasts now, which I was grateful for, but it was still weird and sudden. This trilogy was exclusive to Netflix and probably won't ever see a physical media release due to how Netflix shows tend to go. Next up, another Netflix exclusive series, Transformers BotBots. This was 1 season of 10 episodes. It is a comedy series focused on tiny Transformers that turn into everyday objects. There was supposed to be a season 2 and it never happened. Thank you, Netflix. There also is no physical release, but currently you can watch all 10 episodes on Netflix, so there's that. Now that brings us to the most recent Transformers television series, Transformers Earthspark, a series that takes a very distinctive, different approach than other Transformers shows. This is not a show about the war between the Autobot and Decepticons, but in fact, what happened after. What happened when the war ended? Where was Earth at that point? And that is such a cool idea that we hadn't really seen explored before. This was a co-production between Hasbro/E1 and Paramount/Nickelodeon, and it was exclusive to Paramount Plus initially before airing on Nickelodeon later. So it's streaming home as Paramount Plus. It also airs on Nickelodeon. It airs on Nickelodeon in the dumbest time slot too, like 1 p.m. on Mondays during school season. This show sadly got sort of sabotaged by every company involved with it, and its second season has only aired 10 episodes on Paramount Plus, and we do not know when the rest of the season is coming. There should be more episodes, we just don't know when. The series also hasn't officially been canceled, but we've heard from voice actors and production people, as well as upcoming listings for toys. There is no season 3 coming. From my full confidence, I can say that. And it's sad because I think that the concepts behind Earthspark were very fresh and invigorating. It was really cool to see. The show did take more of a slice-of-life approach in season 1, and season 2 has been up for debate onto its quality because of the change in animation studios and writing teams, but overall, Earthspark is a fresh new idea in Transformers, and it's sad that it got stamped out pretty much immediately. It debuted in 2022, and in 2024, we're asking why it's already over. It's kind of a shame that there hasn't been a Transformers show that could even run as long as Cyberverse did. Now, luckily, Paramount did release season 1 into 2 DVD volumes. I would have liked a Blu-ray, but I'll take what I can get at this point, and hopefully season 2 will follow when it's completed its airing. And that's pretty much it for Earthspark. I really wish this could have continued, but it seemed like they wanted to kind of push it out the door and talk about their new movie. And that brings us to Transformers 1, a brand new animated film in a brand new continuity, and I think probably the next great place to start watching Transformers. I mean, just go out and see the movie. It's a completely fresh new continuity, no matter what the head producer of the Transformers movies tries to gaslight us into. This is a new continuity. It's a fresh take on Transformers, and it's an origin story of Optimus, Megatron, Bumblebee, and Elita 1 before they even had those names, and showing Cybertron in its early days before the Autobot and Decepticon war. Kind of makes a nice like thematic piece to go with Earthspark, where Earthspark is like what's after the war and this is before the war. I haven't gotten a chance to see this movie yet, but I'm very excited to take a look at it. Seems to have been made by a lot of love by some Transformers fans. And that currently is the last thing that we officially know about for the Transformers media, and it is, of course, the newest thing out and available. And that does it for the Transformers viewing guide. It is a bit messy. The franchise is wonderful. There's a lot of great storytelling. There's a lot of cool things in it, but it is hard to track because there's so many starts and stops and starts and stops and starts and stops. It's not on like a refresh cycle that sort of builds to anything. A lot of times we just kind of see Transformers refreshed and it's rebooted more times, especially the cartoons. It's sad to say, but basically, since the live-action movies have been successful, after Prime and RID 2015 being two tightly knit shows, we've not seen a show get a sequel. Rescue Bots Academy was the last sequel we got, and that was the end of that continuity, but already by that point, we had seen like 2 other shows start off in different continuities. We are starting to see diminishing returns. It's kind of a problem with like TV in general right now due to streaming, but, you know, Earthspark only being 2 seasons, compared to Cyberverse being 4, you know, we're starting to see less and less on these shows, and it's kind of a shame. We're not on a regular schedule like with the Japanese shows where it was like, oh, here's your 52 episodes a year, so you kind of expect it. It's sort of like, oh, hey, we're starting and we're over already. And that's the sad part. And it does seem like every time a movie comes out, they end the show that's airing so they can focus on the movie, when I think both can coexist with a little bit of like marketing push. It shouldn't be too hard. I mean, just have the show go on break, put your movie out, then bring the show back. Don't know why we can't do that, but that doesn't seem to be Hasbro's MO anymore or ever, really. So that's just kind of how Transformers goes, but I hope that you'll find something within this that caught your attention and take a look at something within the Transformers universe, because I think there's something in Transformers for everybody, and maybe it's not on the screen, maybe it's in the pages of a comic, but we'll have to talk about that a different day if we do. That's even messier than the TV shows. The TV shows was easy compared to the comic books. So I'm not going to commit to doing a comic video. Don't ask me for it. If I do it, I will do it of my own volition. But if you do want to ask me for other types of videos, hit the comments down below, hit the like and the subscribe if you haven't already. Helps the channel out immensely. If you have friends who are trying to get into Transformers and need a guide, please send this link to them of this video. I hope to help people get into Transformers. That's kind of the goal of the video. Also, like I said, check out the other viewing guides if you haven't already. Plus, if you want to join for more discussions, our live streams are on this YouTube channel every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. We also have a Discord server in the link below. Come hang out, come chat about Transformers and other things down there. Always a good time. Plus, if you want to help support the channel directly to fund videos like this, like these viewing guides, consider joining as a channel member. There are perks like early access to videos, member-exclusive live streams, and special shoutouts depending on what tier you're on. And let's give some special shoutouts to our channel members. Special shout out to all our channel members, including our Captain Tier, Spin-54, Toma K, Masterbin95, Jamie's World, Forever1000, Easy2727, Philippe Ceruno, Star Warrior Robbie, Gustav, Cameron Meter, Hasbin Hotel and more, Isabella Lawrence, Digital Realm, Stay at Home Meatbag, Kyle, BJ Juan Lund, Vangel Giorgio, Josh Frisch, Chubby Potato 153, Uncaged Otaku. Thank you all for your support. If you so wish, I'm across most social media at Soundout12. You can find my awesome graphic designer on social media and Discord at DarkClaw643. And you can find Hero Club at hero-club.com for news, interviews, reviews, and more. And until next time, this is Soundout saying, transform and roll out!